In 1899, in an old bookstore in Kanda, Tokyo, a scholar opened a stack of yellowed manuscripts. The signature was utterly unfamiliar, but the words were like claps of thunder, scathingly denouncing the Tokugawa shogunate that had collapsed a century prior. This social thought, so far ahead of its time, actually came from the hand of a country doctor from the Edo period. His name was Ando Shuki. Tonight, let us accompany the flickering firelight and this story you need not struggle to remember, as we step into the true story of his life. He was a man living in the mist, with no illustrious master nor recommendation from the nobility. Yet, in that era of strict hierarchy where samurai could kill commoners at will, he quietly planned a dream of equality for all humanity within his late-night clinic. This is a life epic about endurance, the earth, and that composure of the great hermit living in the market. Ando Shuki's life was deeply rooted in the desolate lands of northeastern Japan in the 18th century. In the Aomori of those days, winter seemed to have no end. The biting sea wind swirled with lingering snow, battering the low thatched huts of poor farmers. As a doctor walking among the common folk, Shuki witnessed too many tragedies that should never have happened. He saw elderly farmers who had toiled all year pass away in the cold night, clutching empty rice crocks because they had to pay heavy annual taxes. Meanwhile, samurai and officials who never labored squandered the people's wealth in magnificent mansions. Sitting by a patient's tatama mat with herbs in hand, Shuki asked a most counterintuitive question. Why are the people who truly feed this world the ones living most like cattle? Why have those who do not farm become the masters of the world? This intellectual rift made it impossible for him to remain a doctor who only saw physical pain and ignored destiny. He realized that this disease called hierarchy had no medicinal cure, only a reconstruction of the logic of civilization could heal it. To find the answer, Ando Shuki began an incredibly long intellectual expedition. He did not go to Kyoto or Edo to pursue fame. Instead, he did the opposite, completely immersing himself in the small town of Hachinohe. By day he took pulses and treated the sick. By night, he retreated into a secret room filled with the scent of herbs, accompanied by his books. He created a soul-shaking term, chako, direct cultivation. He believed that only by personally tilling the soil could the human soul maintain its original purity and health. On his manuscript paper, he sketched a world called the natural world. There was no emperor, no shogunate, and no exploitation. People worked as naturally as breathing and lived together as equally as the stars. You must understand that in that era, writing such words was no different from seeking death. But Shuki exhibited astonishing restraint. He never breathed a word of his ambitions to anyone. He was like a seed buried deep underground, quietly accumulating green strength to break through the soil under extreme darkness and pressure. Ando Shuki's thought carried a composure and compassion unique to Eastern philosophy. He did not merely criticize society. He performed an autopsy on the prevailing Confucianism and Buddhism of the time. He believed those complex rituals and mysterious doctrines were merely ornate shells used by rulers to numb the masses. He proposed the concept of gosei, mutual life, believing all things are driven by the natural rhythm of the earth, and man is no nobler than grass or trees. This perspective of equality for all beings made his gaze in his later years exceptionally clear and vast. In the intervals between his medical rounds, he would often stand on the ridges of the fields, observing the rhythm of the crops growing. In his eyes, the ripening of every grain of wheat was a magnificent miracle, far more worthy of tribute than a shogun in Edo Castle. This frequency of resonance with the earth endowed his life with a powerful sleep-inducing quality, a complete tranquility untethered by material desires. Even though the shogunate's rule was at its zenith, in Shuki's writings, it was merely a passing cloud moving against nature. In his final years, Ando Shuki increasingly resembled a transparent hermit. He opened a small private school in Hachinohe, teaching children the principles of medicine and nature. He never taught them how to seek fame or office, but rather how to identify herbs and listen to the voice of the wind. He lived in extreme simplicity, not even leaving behind a formal portrait. He secretly entrusted his 100-volume masterpiece, Shurzen Shinaido, to trusted disciples, instructing them, "Now is not yet the time for it to speak." In 1762, Shuki passed away peacefully on a quiet afternoon. After his death, his manuscript slept for 137 years in attics, ruins, and the dust of history. During this long span, Japan experienced the fall of the shogunate, the opening of the country by black ships, and the Meiji Restoration. The world changed almost entirely. However, when his thoughts finally saw the light of day again, people were stunned to find that the natural laws predicted by this hermit were still as fresh and burning as ever. He was like a long-distance runner, quietly waiting at the finish line of time for those who would follow. Ando Shuki's life was like a piece of jade dropped into a deep pond. It stirred no great waves, but it made the depths warm and smooth. He left us not only shocking assertions but also the composure of the great hermit living in the market. He tells us that even if you find yourself in an era where you have no choice, you can still cultivate your own vast, free wilderness deep within your heart. To answer the question from the prologue, why hide? Because true truth often bears fruit in the quietest places. And you now, do you also feel that thousand-year-old stability, as solid as the soil? The once boisterous shoguns and samurai have long since turned to ash, but the natural rhythm in Shuki's writing still echoes with every spring breeze. You can drift to sleep now. The wind outside has stopped, and the life of the earth is preparing to awaken in your dreams. May you enter a peaceful dream of equality and tranquility with this Shuki-esque clarity. Good night.